December 26, 1900, a supply ship called the Hesperus approached the Flannan Isles, a group of wind-battered rocks 20 miles off the west coast of Scotland. The lighthouse was still running. The lamp was still turning. But when the relief keeper climbed the rocks and entered the tower, he found that 3 experienced men had simply ceased to exist. No bodies, no blood, no distress signal, no explanation. In over 120 years, not one investigation has closed the case. The Flannan Isles are not a place ordinary people go. They are a cluster of jagged, uninhabited rocks in the North Atlantic, one of the most remote and hostile environments in the British Isles. The nearest town is 20 miles away across open ocean. In 1899, the Northern Lighthouse Board completed construction of a new lighthouse there. Its purpose was simple: warn ships away from the rocks. 3 men were assigned to operate it. James Ducat, principal keeper, 43 years old, 20 years of experience, a man described by colleagues as unshakable. Thomas Marshall, second keeper, equally experienced. And Donald MacArthur, called in at the last moment as a replacement for a colleague who had fallen ill. On December 7, 1900, all 3 were at their posts. 19 days later, they were gone. On December 26th, Joseph Moore stepped ashore on the Flannan Isles. He was the incoming relief keeper, arriving on the Hesperus to rotate with the men inside. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. No one came to meet the boat. No signal flags had been raised. The landing platform was empty. Moore climbed the steps to the lighthouse door. It was unlocked. He called out. Nothing. Inside the kitchen, a half-eaten meal sat cold on the table. A single chair had been knocked over. The clock had stopped. 2 of the 3 oilskin coats, the heavy weather gear that no lighthouse keeper ever goes outside without, were missing from their hooks. The 3rd coat, belonging to Donald MacArthur, was still there. The lighthouse lamp was still burning, still turning, still doing its job. But the 3 men it depended on had simply vanished. Joseph Moore ran back to the ship to raise the alarm. The investigators found the lighthouse log still open to the final entry. What they read disturbed every man present. December 12th. Entry by Thomas Marshall. Severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen in 20 years. Ducat is quiet. MacArthur has been weeping. 2 experienced keepers. 1 weeping, 1 gone silent, in the grip of something they could not name. December 13th. Storm still raging. Sea in fury. Ducat quiet. MacArthur praying. Grown men, hardened by decades at sea, praying. December 14th. The entry was brief, almost incoherent. December 15th. Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all. That was the last entry. But here is what makes those log entries genuinely disturbing. When meteorological records were examined, there was no storm. Not on the 12th. Not on the 13th. Not on the 14th. Weather stations across the Outer Hebrides recorded calm conditions throughout that entire period. No storm was reported from any ship in the surrounding area. Whatever those 3 men experienced during those 3 nights, whatever made a veteran keeper weep, and a calm man fall silent, and a 3rd man pray, the official weather record says it never happened. The investigation did find physical evidence at the western landing platform, 100 feet below the lighthouse. Iron railings had been bent outward by some enormous force. A heavy wooden crate had been hurled from the platform onto the rocks above it. A mooring rope had been torn loose and tangled, and a boulder, estimated to weigh over 1 ton, had been moved from its original position. The official conclusion was a freak wave, a rogue surge from the Atlantic. All 3 men had descended to the landing platform together and been swept out to sea. Their bodies, carried by the current, would never be recovered. It was tidy. It was plausible. It satisfied the inquiry. But it explained nothing. At every lighthouse in Britain, protocol was absolute. At least 1 keeper must remain inside at all times. For all 3 to descend to the rocks together, in any weather, was a serious breach of procedure that no experienced keeper would commit. James Ducat knew this better than anyone. He had enforced it himself for 2 decades. And Donald MacArthur's oilskin coat was still hanging on its hook. He would never have gone outside in a storm without it. None of this appeared in the final report. The Northern Lighthouse Board officially closed its inquiry in 1901. Cause of death, accidental drowning. Circumstances, probable. Not confirmed, not proven, probable. The bodies of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur were never found. 11 specific questions submitted to the inquiry were never answered. Why did the log describe 3 days of violent storm when no storm existed? Why did experienced men, all 3, leave the lighthouse unattended at the same time? Why was MacArthur's oilskin still there? What moved a boulder weighing over a ton? What caused 2 hardened, experienced men to weep and pray? The lighthouse continued operating for another 90 years. No other keeper ever reported anything unusual there. The case remains open. Drop a comment and tell me, do you believe it was a wave, or is there something the official report never addressed? We are unpredictable. See you in the dark.